There she goes. Thank you. Welcome everybody to lesson 17. We are really getting through these now, aren't we? Lesson 17 is unit 13, approaching section C of the exam. In this lesson, we are going to cover lesson 13.1 in your Cloudport information, which is section C of the exam, and lesson 13.2, which is titles in section C of the exam. So section C of the exam will give you 3 questions to answer, 3 possible questions, and you choose the one you like the best. In this section, you'll need to employ the skills you learned in the last few lessons, which were on argumentative and discursive writing, narrative writing, and descriptive writing. When you get to section C, it will look a little like something here. This is from a past paper, and this shows you the layout to expect. There are 3 different titles offered to you here. They will always be the same 3 types as these. They are a narrative title, a descriptive title, and an argumentative or discursive title, which is what we covered last time. These themes will remain, so your exam will have these same 3 types in it. The theme of these titles will focus on the issues previously raised in this exam. This doesn't mean you have to stick to the same themes yourself, but we'll talk more about this later. One of the things to say about this is down at the bottom where it says chosen question number. Whichever one of these you want to pick is completely up to you, but make sure that you do tick in the box which one you have then gone on to answer. As shown here, this section suggests you spend 1 hour on it. This includes reading the questions, deciding which one to answer, planning your answer, and then of course actually writing it. You are encouraged to spend 10 minutes on a plan and then 40 minutes writing. A plan, as we've talked about before, is very important, and don't feel like it is wasted time, as those 10 minutes will be far better spent making a frame for your answer and exploring the points you want to raise than they would be just diving straight in and writing. As also shown here, this question is worth 35 points, although the question in your Cloudport information is shown as being 30 points. So always ensure you read the question when you sit the exam, read what it actually says when you sit the exam. I think it will be 30, but either way, this is a big question with lots of marks available, and you want to give it your all no matter how many points it's for. So assessment objectives. Speaking of marks, you will need to understand what the examiners are looking for in your answer and what you will be marked on and given points for. This section assesses 2 assessment objectives set out by Edexcel in the course specification. These are AO4, communicate effectively and imaginatively, adapting form, tone and register for writing for specific purposes and audience. And AO5, write clearly, using a range of vocabulary and sentence structures with appropriate paragraphing, accurate spelling, grammar and punctuation. Let's look at these assessment objectives a little closer, starting with AO4. Throughout this course, you've been learning interesting and creative ways to use literary and linguistic techniques to convey your ideas and meanings. In section C, you have an opportunity to use this knowledge to create an imaginative and entertaining piece of writing. This is about expressing yourself and writing creatively. To enhance your ability to communicate effectively and imaginatively, look back at the literary and linguistic techniques that you've learned about and consider interesting ways they could be used in descriptive, narrative, argumentative, or discursive forms of writing. Also think about how your favourite piece of fiction or non-fiction uses literary and linguistic techniques imaginatively, and consider how you could do something similar. You've also learned about the formal structures of narrative, descriptive, argumentative and discursive writing. It is crucial in this section that you show that you understand these formal structures by replicating their main components in an imaginative and unique way. You should always try to be creative. Is there a way to describe something unusually? Is there an interesting plot structure you might want to use? Are there unique points of argument or discussion that you can think of? Finally, we've discussed a lot about the correct tone and register that you should use for your purpose and audience. Always note down what your purpose and audience are before you begin this task, and consider what the appropriate response would be for them. For example, you should ask yourself, what kind of techniques would you use to describe a landscape? What type of plot structure should you use if you're writing an autobiographical story? What type of language should you use in an argumentative essay? So those 3 points, again, from the top, whatever you write, you need it to be interesting and entertaining for the reader. The examiner has read thousands of these. You need yours to be entertaining. It needs to stand out. Make it fun, tense, dramatic, whatever you need to fit your theme, and use descriptive writing and linguistic techniques. Replicate the main components of a type of writing to show you understand it. If you're writing a story, you need dialogue, speech marks. If you're writing a discursive essay, you need facts and arguments, etc. And remember your particular audience and purpose. Of course, your actual audience is the examiner, but you may also have another audience in mind for who your piece is aimed at. It might be a children's story or a newspaper opinion piece, for example. So here is objective A05 again. To score well on this assessment objective, you must ensure that your writing is precise and diverse. Therefore, you must write in clear, concise sentences and paragraphs using accurate spelling, grammar, and punctuation. You should therefore always leave time to look over your work at the end of the exam so that you can fix any errors. But I would stress to do this at the end. Get your writing done first and then go back through and correct your mistakes. You must also use vocabulary and sentence structure creatively. You should try to use a variety of different words and phrases in your response. Don't keep saying good, don't keep repeating the same adjectives over and over again. The best way to improve your vocabulary, we've been over this, is to read as many different types of writing as possible. When you do this, you should note down and look up any word that you are unsure of or any words that you really like. Then you should consider situations in which you may be able to use this word. You should also vary your sentence structure and punctuation where it is appropriate. You should not use the same length of sentence throughout your essay, nor should you overuse one type of punctuation. Throughout this course, we have looked at interesting ways authors have used different sentence structures and punctuation to convey their meaning. You should look over these examples and think of similar creative ways that you could use sentence structure and punctuation in section C of your exam. So to go over these again, you need to be really careful of the words you choose to use and the sentence structures and paragraphs you're using. Practice extending your vocabulary as much as possible before the exam, so you have a wider selection to choose the precise words from when you're writing, when you're thinking in the exam. Make sure you use variation here as well. If your story has a tense and dramatic part, alter your words and your tone to reflect this. You might do shorter sentences, you might be small paragraphs. If you're writing a persuasive piece, bring in some rhetorical questions and plural pronouns, the things that we talked about before. Make sure you bring those in to show the examiner, I know where to use this part of grammar and I know where to use these types of words. So let's have a look at some example questions now. In the order you'll be presented with them in the exam. This is taken from an exam. This is what you should expect to see. Some of you will naturally be drawn to one type of these over the others, and some of you will naturally be put off by some. I don't really like writing stories of my own. It scares me. I'd rather write an essay. Many others of you will be the exact opposite. It's normal to have a preference. Everyone has a preference and things that they're better at than others. But for now, try your best for them all. Don't make a hard or fast decision yet. So let's take a look at the first title, question 9 here first. I'll put it up closer now. So to travel is better than to arrive, discuss. That's your question that you've been given, that's the title. And this is the argumentative or discursive question. So you're going to write an essay about this. So what are your thoughts on this question? I'm asking you now if we can have a little bit of interaction. If you were given this in an exam, what are your immediate thoughts on this question? What could you write for this? Would you agree with this or would you disagree? Or would you compare both sides equally? What do we think for this one? Does an essay put people off, or are you like me? Would you rather?
Well, it depends. If you're traveling, it says to travel is better than to arrive.
Yeah.
But people would say the opposite, really, because let's just say you're going on holiday, you prefer to arrive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're there and it's hot, and you know, and you know, there's a lot of stuff to do and stuff.
That's it. If you're going on holiday, you're going for the holiday. You're not just taking a flight, are you? That's not the holiday. You're going on holiday. But lots of people say that the holiday starts in the airport, don't they? Lots of people say that. Tabitha, compare. You would compare, would you? I like that. Yeah. So if you have a really strong opinion, you can write that. But yeah, most of these, unless it says how far do you agree with this statement, if it just says discuss, you can weigh the arguments up like we talked about last week. So for, against, and then at the end you can conclude or you could leave it open. Nick says the travel part is boring and not many people want to hear that part. Very, very true. So yeah, if you're talking about people hearing it, if you're telling a story about traveling somewhere, you're telling a story about being there. You know, I went to Goa or I went to Africa. You're not going to tell them about the aeroplane in the airport, are you? But I love airports. I love the plane. I love packing what I'm going to do on the plane. I love the time on the plane. I love the excitement. I love the airport. I love the hotel the night before. I love that. And I love a train journey as well, because I don't go on trains very often. So for me, that's quite exciting. Because
I think to travel there is better than to travel back.
Oh, the travel there. I think the travel back is quicker though.
Yeah,
the
travel back, you're thinking, oh no, in a few days I'm going to be back at work and then on
Yeah, so on my way back from holiday, you know, I was on holiday in Egypt last month. That's why I couldn't do one of these. On the way back, our plane was delayed an hour and it felt like years. Whereas when the plane's delayed on the way over, it's fine, isn't it? You're like, woo, another hour in the airport. It doesn't matter. But oh, the delay on the way back. It was horrible. Meadow, I agree with it because half of the experience is the journey there and how excited you are. Yeah, definitely. You've got to add in that build up, haven't you? It's part of it, isn't it? Nick, you could say a little about how busy it is and the view from the plane, but you can't.
Yeah, but it says it's better. It's better though. I can't see it being better. You're going to prefer to be on the actual holiday than to travel, aren't you?
That's it. Yeah. So you might say that the traveling is okay. I enjoy the traveling, but no one's saying it's better, is it? Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, Rodri. As much as I enjoy the airport and the plane, I'm not going, oh, that was the best bit of my holiday, because it wasn't. The cocktails were. I'm not saying the plane was better. So that's a really good point. And Nick's made a good point here as well. You could say a little about how busy it is and the view from the plane, but you can't say too much because you may lose your reader. Really interesting. Remember here that we're talking about an essay here. This is not going to be a story that you're creating or a fiction. This one is an essay. So yeah, don't bang on about how boring the plane is and just tell a story about being on the plane, because you are going to lose your reader. You need to mix up your argument, don't you? A, B, or argument for, argument against, or if you want to just say no, traveling's rubbish, I absolutely hate it, you could give 3 arguments against it, maybe throw in an argument for, but say why you don't agree with it, and then a conclusion like we talked about last week. So yeah, loads of ideas for this one. Well done, everybody. Who would give this one a go in an exam? Tabitha is going, no, not like it because of this topic or because it's an essay.
I'd possibly give it a go. It depends on, because sometimes they give you more than one question, don't they?
So yeah, you get 3. Yeah, you're going to get 3 on this.
It depends on what question I think is better, that I could answer better.
Yeah, so the way that like we've just talked about, this is the argumentative and discursive. So this is the essay one. And then you're going to have a narrative and, oh, you would try it, Favour. That's brilliant. You would try it. And Tabitha don't like essays. Yeah, that's fair. Some people just don't do well in them. And if you're going to freeze up and if you're not going to do well, I say pick whichever one you can really flow with. If you're good at telling a narrative story, if you're good at fiction telling, absolutely flow with that one. But make sure you absolutely swat up on that one. Then make sure you're going to go into it.
I'll probably come into the decision when I practice a bit more.
I like that, Roger. Yeah, practice all 3.
I need to practice a bit more first on different things that we're doing. And then I can see which the topic I found easier throughout the thing, because the story writing with the image is it's easy. No, it's not easy. I'm not saying I said the wrong thing. I said it's I think I'm getting the hang of it, just looking at the image, and I think it helps you writing a story, looking at an image, and then writing about the image and stuff like that. I think it's good that I've done that, because I think it's actually helped me learn how to write a story a bit better.
It is good, but don't get yourself into a rut, because these 3 that we're doing now, Rodri, don't have an image. So if you've got so used to using an image, these 3 don't have one. So that's what I'm saying. Don't get yourself into a rut and say, this is the one I'm doing. If you want to throw one like an essay,
I know, because the thing is with an image, I think they're doing that to help you be able to write a story, but you're right, could you write a story if they're looking at a blank piece of paper?
That's the danger. If you've thrown some options out, if you've thrown 2 options out and you're going, this is the one I'm going to do, and then it comes to the exam and it's a question that's really unfamiliar or it just doesn't sit with you, you are in trouble. So I would say, if you say to yourself, I really hate essays or I really hate story writing, that's fine, but practice them all, give them all a go, because it doesn't hurt.
I like story writing, but really sometimes it's time consuming.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but you've got the same amount of time in this one for everything. Don't forget your plan. Okay, let's have a look at the next question then. Write a story, true or imaginary, entitled The Beginning. What do we think about that one? It's a narrative question, this one. What are your thoughts on this? What could you write about for this? Would it be better to imagine a fictitious story, or would you stick with a real event that's happened to you? Who would give this one a go?
It sounds like the Bible, the beginning, in the beginning.
That's a really good analogy. I didn't even think of that. I didn't even draw that analogy. That's really good, Roger. Well done. So you could retell the Bible in your own words, maybe. Tabitha, you might, and Meadow, you would. Right, so you two are a bit more creative. You like some sort of fiction, yeah? You're going to tell it, you're going to tell this story to us. Is it a real story, or is it one that you've just completely made up? Is it going to be really far-fetched? Because don't forget, don't ever feel afraid to make this up, because the examiner is not going to Google you and see what you've been through. They're not, I promise you. They don't care. As long as you've told a really good and interesting story, wing it. Some of the best stories have got a grain of truth. It might have happened to you, because then you've got those memories, you've got the experiences, you've got the things to draw upon. But yeah, absolutely go for it. Just say something amazing happened or something dreadful happens. But yeah, who's going to do this telling a true story, do you think? Or who would completely make one up? Who's going to just rewrite the Bible? I don't know. I don't know what I would do for this one at the beginning. I think I maybe would think of like maybe a relationship or something, and talk about how it started off, a friendship or something. Obia Darcy would make it up. Yeah. So you're going to make it up and make it really fantastic? Or would it be, would it have elements of truth in it? Or would it be like mythical or have made up things in it? The beginning could be like a Lord of the Rings type thing, couldn't it? Nick, true story. Yeah, so you're going to stick to a truth. You're going to have a grain of truth in there. Write about what you know. Meadow, a true story about moving countries and the beginning of your new life there. That sounds so interesting. That sounds so interesting. And if you've got a kernel of truth in there as well, and you've moved countries, you can really get all the emotion and everything in there, couldn't you? You could really do that justice. These stories, they might be better for some people than others. Someone might have moved countries, but everything has a beginning. You could talk about a first job, going to school, meeting a friend. Everyone has a beginning to talk about, and you do always have the option to just make it up as well. So who would give this one a go, do you think? Is this one better or worse than the essay? It's easy to write about, Nick, because you have been there and know, yeah, very much that you know how you felt, and getting those emotions across is really, really important. So knowing the emotions that you had, much easier to write about. Tabitha, better. This one's better for Tabitha.
Do you know, looking at these sometimes makes me think of when I was a kid and I look at the exams. Yeah. When you sometimes you look at that, just that, and it makes you panic, because you look at it and you're thinking, what can I do? What can I write? And then it goes like, that's you need to, obviously I need to snap out of that.
No, not at all. I say go with that, Rodri. You are going to have that panic. When you go into an exam and you read these 3, you're going to have 10 minutes going, I don't know which one to do. I don't know which one. And then when you've chosen one, you're going to have another 10 minutes going, I don't know what to write about. That's where your plan comes in, okay? Because you sit down and you say to yourself, I'm going to make a plan. These are my ideas. I'm going to put them in a structure. And then by the time you start writing, the panic's gone, okay? The panic's gone. You've got yourself a plan. You know what you're doing. So yeah, work with the panic, use it to make a plan, because you can't help panic. I'm great at English. I've got a master's, but I could still go into an exam and go, I don't know what it's on. I don't know what it's going to ask me, because it's the fear of the unknown, isn't it? That's normal. Tabitha says she would write about starting a new school. That's a brilliant topic. I really like that. It's something that you've done. It doesn't have to be your real school. Something amazing could happen in this new school, but it's a subject that you know. And Tabitha, if you're really leaning towards the fiction and you're really leaning away from the exams, that's great, because you will have 2 kind of fictiony creative ones that you can answer, I would say just focus on those and focus on the techniques you need, the structure that you need and stuff like that. Okay, let's move on to our third question. Describe a place that has made an impression on you. This is the descriptive title. We're going to describe a place that has made an impression on you. This is incredibly varied. This gives you a lot of scope, which could be off-putting for some, or it could be just what other people are looking for. Maybe Tabitha's going to throw herself into all the scope.
I'd probably find this one easier than the ones previous.
Yeah, would you? So you think description?
Because describe a place that has made an impression on you.
Yeah.
You could just write about your holiday that you've been on.
Very true. A good holiday or a bad holiday, either, couldn't you? You could think of a place that made a positive impression or a negative one. You could do a real event. You know, I went. It'll
probably be easier than the others.
You think this one would be easier? That's really
than the others. Yeah, I would have thought. That's me. People may disagree with me. People may disagree with me.
So can you see that all these three are in a theme? They're all in a theme, aren't they? They're all in like a traveling, a place, an event sort of theme. So yeah, I imagine the questions in this exam were on things like holidays and trains and planes and whatnot. So you will always get 3 questions that are themed like this, but they're kind of linked. That doesn't mean you have to speak about what has gone on in the exam before. If you've had an exam that was about holidays and stuff and you want to write a place that's down your street, absolutely fine. Okay, take out the themes from this, you put in your own themes. So let's talk about this one. Describe a place that has made an impression on you. How many people would give this one a go out of the 3? Who prefers this one? Yes, Tabitha's going absolutely yes. So Tabitha's got really bad, bit better. Yeah, I'm going for that one. Casper, this one as well. Good news. Rodri, I'd write about Santorini. Oh, wow. I would like to read about Santorini as well. I think that sounds amazing. So you're going to talk about a positive impression. Anyone going to talk about a negative impression? What would you use personally? Would you use a positive or a negative? Which one do you think you can get the emotions and the descriptions across better with?
I think positive I'd find easier.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, because most holidays I've been on are positive.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'd find it easier to, I'd have to obviously note down what I can remember from my holiday.
Yeah.
And note it all down and put it in note form first.
Yeah, but don't forget, if you're talking about a holiday, you don't have to rely on memory. You can beef that up. Yeah, you can talk about what you remember, but then make it up because you've got to get the descriptions and the imagery in there. That's what we're talking about in the describe. You're bringing in the emotions and the imagery.
Oh, you can make some of it up. But you can also make notes of what you remember, I suppose.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, bring in the realistic elements because you'll hear that. You'll hear the realistic bits. You'll hear that you actually went there. Meadow says positive as well. Tabitha says negative. Interesting. I always think for negative as well. I don't know if it's a devil's advocate in me, but I always want to go for the not so usual. Describe a place that's made an impression on you. Maybe I could go for a really horrible job. Like a time I was really miserable and I hated everything. I feel like I could really get the emotion into that and I could really get some descriptive writing into that, get my teeth into it. So yeah, I quite like this one, but to talk about a negative. Does that appeal to anyone else, or would you just be talking about a really positive? Your primary, Tabitha. Oh no, so you would talk about a negative primary school experience and how that affected you and how that framed you. That's really interesting.
You could possibly. It depends on whether you find it something that sticks in your mind, whether what sticks in your mind easiest. Is it a negative thing that sticks in your mind easiest, or is it a positive thing
that
true sticks in your mind easier?
If you're going to describe, you need to have those emotions and those feelings and those visions right there, don't you? So yeah, whichever one is most prominent in your mind, whether it's a positive or a negative. But don't forget, you can just make it up. You can just absolutely make it up. The first time I went to the moon had a real impression on me. Just make it up if you want to. So again, this is one of those
things. I think they're going to know we haven't gone to the moon.
It doesn't matter. You can describe it.
I'm only joking.
But yeah, you can make it up. So you might be sitting there thinking, I've never been on holiday. People are going to have so many better things to write about. It's not true. You can write about the shop down the road that left an impression on you. You can write about your grandma's house. You can write about your first school, your first job, anything like that. Okay, so the scope is huge on this one. This one has got the widest scope, which probably means that the examiner is going to read a million different ones. And that's maybe a good thing for you. It's maybe a bad thing for you. You need to think about what you feel you can answer the best. Thank you for all your interaction. You're all brilliant. So now we've talked about our own ideas on these three titles. Let's revisit them and see what your Cloudport information has to say on each of them. So for this one, question 9, there's no audience here, therefore it's assumed the examiner is the audience. You are also free to agree or disagree with the statement, and you may provide a variety of arguments. Therefore, it's your decision whether you write an argumentative essay in which you favour one side from the beginning, or a discursive essay in which you provide a more balanced approach. In questions that ask to what extent do you agree or do you agree, I would always write an argumentative response because they are explicitly asking for your opinion. Questions like this one, which say discuss, this gives you more leeway as to which form you write in. Opting for an argumentative approach allows you to use diversive language techniques. Your answer to this question might include references to where you are going, how you're getting there, who you are travelling with, why you are travelling, what mode of transport is being used. However, this list is not comprehensive. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. So that is all in your Cloudport information, what I've just read out. You can go and read that, but I just want to go over one of these bits again about the argumentative versus discursive. So this one says discuss. Which leaves you open to doing either argumentative or discursive. You can completely agree. There were some of you there that said, yeah, I quite like traveling. Lots of you there that completely disagreed. You're welcome to do that all the way through your essay as long as you give enough points. Or you can give a discursive essay where you give a point for, point against, point for, and then at the end you might have an overall argument, you might not. If your argument says, do you agree? Or to what extent do you agree, then you have to pick an opinion, okay? You can't just give a discursive, balanced view on that one. You have to state your opinion. You can give arguments 2 and 4, as long as you state at the end, how much do you agree, how much do you disagree? Because that is the question that it's asked you. You have to make sure you answer that. This one here, though, you can leave this one wide open. So question 10 again, there is no indicative content here, meaning that there's nothing you are required to include in this response, because you can choose to interpret this title as you wish. You will, however, be awarded for such qualities as a sense of drama, vivid description, excitement, or suspense. You might not explicitly reference the title until the very end of the story. This means that you might write a narrative in which the beginning that they are describing is not clear until the very end of the story. That's interesting. So you can play with this. You might open your story with in the beginning or on the very first day, or you might just be talking about the build-up and what's happening and leave the reader guessing what's happening. And then at the end, there comes your beginning. It's completely up to you, however you feel. But remember the bit we talked about before, which said, if there's elements of your favourite stories, so if you like stories with a twist or you like stories that are dramatic, maybe try and copy that, maybe try and emulate some of that. So, question 11 that most people liked. You can choose to describe a wide range of places, real or imaginary. You could choose to refer to whole neighbourhoods, towns, villages, or a street. It may be a small or large area, could be indoors or outdoors. You may describe just a building or just a room. The place may have a personal or spiritual significance. And again, this list is not exhaustive. You do whatever you want to write about. You will be rewarded for your powers to evoke a sense of place and atmosphere using effective vocabulary. So by that, it means your writing should evoke the atmosphere you're describing. If the impression a place made on you was positive and you thought it was a wondrous place, you need to use wondrous and amazed language and tone to convey your feelings to the reader. If the place was a negative place, maybe use an ominous tone and dramatic language to convey the feeling you had in that place with the reader. So having talked these over and shared ideas of them, which of these 3 questions here do you think you'd attempt in the exam? Did your choice change when we spoke? I'm going to put a poll up now. A, B, or C. Which of these 3 do you think you'd have a go at? I'm not going to make you have a go, so feel free to vote on which one you think you'd have a go at. This is just for fun. This is just to see what people prefer. If it helps, I would definitely have a go at the top one. And I think I would always have a go at the top one. Maybe it's because I've been through uni and all we do is write essays. So that's my comfort zone. Maybe that's the reason. Let me share this one with you. Wow, that's really interesting. Completely equal. 33% for A, B and C. That is really evenly split. And I like that. Well done. So whose opinion changed then during that? Who started out thinking they'd like one question?
I think mine did a little bit.
Yeah? Which ones did you go for, Roger? Do you mind telling us?
Well, the thing, travel is better than to arrive. In some ways, that's easier.
Yeah.
Because if you describe a place that's impression on you, then you've got to think, oh, what did I do there?
Yeah.
You know, and here you can come up with points about traveling there, traveling back.
Yeah.
You know, you can come up with points, you know, all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah, Roger, you're very good at an essay. You're very good at putting your point of view across, aren't you? So I'm not surprised that's your natural zone, you know, because you're very good at that. I would lean less towards the fiction. I don't think I'd be very good at giving a story a go. Describing a place, description's different to fiction, isn't it? So I might be okay at that one. That might be another one. Anyone else's mind change during that? Did anyone change what they thought they would choose to something else maybe? Tabitha, nope, didn't even contemplate that essay. Don't like it, not going to do it. And that's fine, because a lot of your exam answers are going to be essays. You're going to be writing argumentative and discursive things, aren't you? But you're not going to do much fiction narrative writing. You're not going to do much creative writing. So absolutely have a go at the end. Have fun with it. Good for you. You didn't change your mind favour. You stuck with the same one. That's interesting as well. You really stuck with your guns. So yeah, if you had a favourite and you think in the exam, that's the one I'm going to pick, don't rule out the others. At least don't rule out one of the others. Make sure you go into there with some options, okay? Daniel, me neither. I just love arguing. Oh, maybe that's why I like that one too. Didn't even think about that one. I just really like arguing. And I really like everyone else to agree with me. I like it when everyone agrees with me. So maybe that's why I like essays, because I'm really good at getting everyone on board. Oh, Daniel, you really made me look at myself.
You do. You get that with politics. You get people that try and change your political view.
Very much.
It's up to the person. It depends on the subject, but it can be quite annoying sometimes.
Very much. But what are we going to remember? Does anyone remember what we're going to do if we're going to argue in our essay? If we're going to try and get people to agree with us that traveling's amazing, come and travel, it's brilliant, it's the best part of the holiday. What sorts of things are we going to use to get people to agree with us? Does anyone know what sort of language we're going to be evoking there? Oh, there's a lot of really worried faces looking at me. Persuasive, Daniel. Yes. Positive, Tabitha. Very, very much. Yes. Persuasive language. We're going to use all those rhetorical devices that we talked about, persuasive devices, things about like speeches. Speeches are very, very persuasive. We're going to look back at speeches and we're going to talk about that, and always end on a positive, Tabitha. Absolutely. Speeches, persuasive language, they always end on a positive. You don't end an essay telling people to travel.
It depends on what you're traveling on as well.
Well, it's your argument.
Do you prefer a plane? Do you prefer traveling on a train? Or
that's interesting. So maybe one of the points could be I only like traveling if it's by plane. I hate trains. Personally, I like a cruise because you don't have to deal with airports. So yeah, there you go. Maybe you could argue it that way, but not that way. Brilliant. I like that everyone's talking about the different scope that this has got. Well done, everybody. Your Cloudport information at this point has lots of other suggested question titles. This is taken directly from your Cloudport, and these are lots of other suggested question titles for each of the 3 writing types. Take a look at these, have a feel for which ones you like to answer the best and which ones you need to work a little more on. Writing yourself a plan for a few of these would be excellent exam practice and will help you to write better and more effective plans in the exam. And it'll also help you get used to the questions, the sorts of questions that are going to come up and what those questions require from you. So what have we learned in this lesson? That section C gives you a choice of 3 titles from which you will write 1 essay. You will choose between 1 descriptive, 1 narrative, and 1 argumentative discursive title. You only need to answer 1, don't do all 3. That you can respond personally and imaginatively to the provided extracts, but you cannot replicate what is written in them or use their ideas. So feel free to look back over your exam, take some ideas from that, but you can't replicate it or carry on that argument. That you are being assessed on your ability to write imaginatively and effectively. that you're being assessed on the precision and creativity of your language and structure, and that the questions are very broad. So you get the opportunity to be creative and unique. You be you. Thank you very much for coming to another lesson. You were all brilliant. Thank you so much for interacting with me and everything. And let me turn off the little lady that's watching us.